Have you ever had one of those mornings where you wake up, move a little slower than usual, and wonder quietly to yourself, is this just getting older, or am I starting to lose something more? Maybe it's not a dramatic change. Maybe it's just forgetting a step when making your tea, or skipping your morning walk without thinking twice, or saying, "I'll do that later," but later never comes. It doesn't seem like a big deal at first. You shrug it off. You tell yourself, "It's fine, I'm just tired today." But deep inside, something nudges you. Something that whispers, "This isn't the way it used to be," and that little whisper starts to grow louder over time. The truth is, most people don't lose their independence overnight. It happens slowly, silently, one small habit at a time. That's what makes it so dangerous. Because when the change is quiet, we don't fight it, we don't even see it happening. We assume the decline is inevitable. We tell ourselves, this is just part of aging. But that's not the whole truth. Yes, our bodies change. Yes, we slow down. But losing your freedom, your strength, your ability to live on your own terms, that's not guaranteed. And often it's the daily choices we make without realizing it that do the most damage. That's why today, we're going to talk about something that matters more than most people realize. The everyday habits that steal your independence, not because they're dramatic, but because they feel normal, familiar, even comforting. And that's exactly why they're so powerful. Let's begin with one of the most common habits, something that seems harmless on the surface but over time quietly weakens your body and your confidence. I'm talking about the habit of sitting too much. Now I know you've probably heard that sitting isn't great for your health. But this isn't just about fitness, this is about freedom. Think about it. How often do you sit for long periods watching TV, reading, scrolling on your phone, or just sitting quietly because there's nothing else to do? A little rest is good, of course. You've earned it. But when sitting becomes the default, hour after hour, day after day, something subtle begins to happen. Your muscles begin to shrink, your circulation slows down, your joints stiffen. And before you know it, standing up from a chair takes more effort than it used to. Going up the stairs feels heavier, your balance doesn't feel as steady. And with each passing day, your world gets a little smaller, not because your spirit isn't willing, but because your body has started to forget how to move. I met a gentleman named Joe, who shared something that stuck with me. He said, "It didn't happen all at once. I used to sit in my recliner for a couple hours after lunch. Then it turned into most of the afternoon. Then whole days would pass and I'd realize I barely stood up." One day he slipped trying to get out of bed. It scared him. But what scared him more was the realization that he didn't trust his own legs anymore. That's the danger of too much stillness. Not just the physical effects, but the way it chips away at your confidence. And once you stop trusting your body, you start avoiding things. You skip the walk. You let someone else carry the groceries. You stop dancing, reaching, bending, stretching. And in doing that, your independence begins to slip through your fingers. But here's the good news, this habit can be reversed. Not with intense workouts or complicated routines, just by choosing to move a little more each day, standing up every hour, walking while you talk on the phone, stretching in the kitchen while waiting for the kettle to boil. These small movements send your body a powerful message. I still need you, I still believe in you. And it's not just your body that hears that message. You hear it too. You start to feel more awake, more connected, more in control. Movement isn't just physical, it's a declaration, a way of saying, I'm still living this life. I'm still here. Now, as important as movement is, there's another habit that might be just as dangerous. Because it doesn't steal your strength, it steals your sharpness. I'm talking about passive thinking, that quiet mental fog that creeps in when you stop actively engaging your brain. It happens when days blend together. When you stop challenging your memory, your problem-solving, your creativity, when your conversations become shorter or your mind wanders more than it used to. And just like your muscles, your brain needs exercise, or it starts to forget what it's capable of. I once spoke to a woman named Diane who said, "I didn't notice it at first, I just stopped reading books, then I stopped writing lists. I'd leave the TV on for background noise, but I wasn't really watching. I just felt dull." She wasn't depressed, she wasn't sick, she was just mentally coasting, going through the motions. And here's the thing, when your brain stops working hard, it starts working less, not because it's broken, but because it assumes it's not needed anymore. That's how memory slips in, not always because of age, but because we've stopped feeding the mind what it craves. Challenge. Simple things can reignite that fire. Puzzles, journaling, learning a new recipe, playing word games, calling an old friend and really talking. Trying to remember the lyrics to your favorite song from childhood and singing it out loud even if your voice cracks. You don't need to be a genius. You just need to be awake, alert, engaged with the world around you. That's what sharpens the mind and keeps you steady, not just in thought, but in life. Because once the mind starts to drift, it becomes easier to forget what matters. You start relying on others more, not because you can't think, but because you've stopped practicing the skill of thinking clearly. And every time you choose passivity over participation, you lose a tiny bit of yourself. But every time you choose to engage, to think, to focus, to create, you bring yourself back into the driver's seat. So between movement and mental engagement, we already begin to see a path forward, a way to resist the quiet pull of dependence. But there's more. And one of the most overlooked habits that steals independence is something emotional. It's the habit of not asking for what you need. Now that might sound like the opposite of what you expect. You might think asking for help means losing control, but it's actually the reverse. Avoiding your needs because you don't want to be a bother or you think people will judge you. That's what leads to quiet suffering. That's what leads to needs going unmet until they become emergencies. Independence doesn't mean doing everything alone. It means knowing what you need and having the strength to speak it. Whether it's saying, I need a little help getting organized, or I'd love to go out more but I don't have a ride, or I'm feeling lonely lately and I could use some company. These statements don't make you weak. They make you aware. And awareness is power. When you acknowledge your needs early, you prevent bigger problems later. You take ownership. You make adjustments on your terms. That's how you stay in control, not by pretending everything's fine, but by facing things honestly before they grow. There's a quiet dignity in saying, this is where I am, and this is what I need right now. People respect that. More importantly, you respect yourself when you say it, and that self-respect keeps you standing tall even when life feels uncertain. So here we are beginning to uncover the hidden ways our everyday patterns shape our future. Sitting too long, letting the mind go quiet, holding back our needs. These things don't look like threats, but over time they become walls between us and the freedom we once had. But once you see them, you can change them. You can take that walk. You can stretch your mind. You can speak your truth. And in doing so, you start reclaiming the parts of yourself that never truly left. They were just waiting to be called forward again. Let's keep going. There's more to uncover, and together we're going to build a life that feels strong, steady, and deeply your own. It's often not the big moments that change our lives the most, it's the small ones. The ones we don't even notice, the decisions we make out of habit, out of comfort, out of routine. And yet, over time, those small choices shape how we feel, how we move, how much we trust ourselves. They can either build our independence or quietly chip it away. So far, we've uncovered a few of those habits. The ones that feel harmless, like sitting a bit too long, letting our minds go quiet, or avoiding asking for help when we truly need it. These may seem minor on their own, but over time they set patterns in motion. Patterns that can slowly shrink your world. But here's the beautiful thing. Just as habits can quietly take away your independence, they can also give it back. Now let's talk about a habit that many people don't even realize they've developed, especially after 60. It's something that happens so gradually, so subtly, that it's easy to miss. It's the habit of letting fear guide your choices. You might not call it fear. It might look like playing it safe, or being realistic, or not pushing it. But underneath, it's that little voice that says, what if I fall? Or what if I mess this up? Or I'm too old to try that now. And it sounds so reasonable, doesn't it? After all, you've earned the right to be cautious. You've lived long enough to know that life isn't always predictable. You've seen what can go wrong. But when fear becomes your advisor, when it starts whispering into every decision, it doesn't just keep you safe, it keeps you small. There's nothing wrong with being careful. But when you stop going out because you're afraid you might trip, when you stop meeting new people because you think you'll forget a name, when you stop trying new things because you might look silly, that's not caution, that's avoidance. And avoidance shrinks your independence faster than almost anything else. I remember a man named Victor. He was 68 and used to be very active, gardening, golfing, even dancing at family events. But one day he slipped on a wet floor and bruised his hip. It wasn't a serious injury, but it scared him. And after that, something changed. He stopped gardening, saying it was too much bending. He stopped dancing because my balance isn't what it used to be. His world got smaller, not because he couldn't do those things anymore, but because he was afraid to try. Victor told me later, I thought I was protecting myself. But I ended up losing the things that made me feel alive. That's what fear does. It makes you give up more than you need to. It convinces you to stay quiet when you should speak, to stay seated when you could stand, to stay home when you long to go out. And the worst part, it always feels justified. You think, I'm just being smart. But really, you're slowly giving up the life you want to live. So how do you break this habit? You don't need to be fearless. You just need to start noticing where fear is making the decisions. Is it fear or fact that's telling you to skip the walk today? Is it fear or fact that's keeping you from trying that new class, calling that old friend, wearing that outfit you love? The more honest you are with yourself, the more you'll see how often fear has been sneaking into your choices. And once you see it, you can gently start pushing back. You don't need to take huge leaps, just take one brave step. Maybe you walk 5 minutes farther than usual. Maybe you speak up in a conversation, even if your voice shakes. Maybe you try something you haven't done in years, not because you know you'll succeed, but because you want to feel alive. Every time you move through fear, even in a small way, you prove something powerful to yourself. I still have it in me. That belief, that quiet confidence, is what helps you stay independent, because confidence is what keeps you trying, and trying is what keeps you strong. Now let's shift to another habit that's often hidden behind good intentions. It's the habit of giving up control of decisions, especially to the people who love you. This one can feel complicated because the people who step in, your children, your spouse, a caregiver, often do so out of love. They want to help, they want to make things easier for you, and sometimes you let them. You let them pick the restaurant, plan your appointments, decide how your day will go. At first it feels like a relief, one less thing to think about. But over time something deeper starts to shift. You stop voicing your preferences. You stop offering your opinion. You stop making choices not because you can't, but because others are doing it for you. And just like that, your independence begins to slip. Not because someone took it, but because you handed it over, one little decision at a time. I once spoke with a woman named Maria who said, "My daughter means well. She takes care of everything. She drives me everywhere. But sometimes I feel like a passenger in my own life." And that's the heart of the problem. Not whether people are helping you, but whether you still feel like you're involved. You don't need to fight your loved ones. You just need to stay active in your life. Speak up about what matters to you. Offer your opinion. Say, "Actually, I'd rather eat at the diner than the cafe." Or, "Let's wait on that doctor's visit. I want to talk about it more." These aren't confrontations, they're conversations. And they remind everyone, including you, that you're still in charge. Even if you need support, you can still make the choices that shape your day. You can still decide what to wear, when to rest, what to eat, what to say yes or no to. Those little decisions, they're not small at all. They are the building blocks of your freedom. When you choose not to fade into the background of your own life, you protect something sacred. You protect your voice. And your voice, your opinion, your preferences, your instincts, is the anchor that holds your independence in place. So as we step back for a moment, let's look at what we're really talking about. We're not just talking about habits, we're talking about something deeper. The quiet patterns that decide whether you remain the author of your life or become a spectator in it. Fear can sneak in and make decisions for you. Comfort can tempt you into stillness. Kind loved ones can unintentionally take the wheel when it should still be your hands on it. These things don't scream, they whisper, and that's why they're so powerful, because we barely notice them until something feels missing. But now you do see them, and that changes everything. Because once you see the habits, you can begin to change them. Gently, slowly, with love. You can remind yourself that life still belongs to you, not in some grand dramatic way, but in the quiet moments that make up your day. When you choose to stand a little taller, to think a little deeper, to speak a little clearer, you're not just breaking habits, you're reclaiming your freedom. And that freedom, it's worth fighting for. Let's keep moving forward. There's more to uncover, more strength to tap into, more of you to bring back to life. There's something remarkable that happens when you start to see your life not as something slipping away, but as something you still hold in your hands. Even when things change, even when you need help now and then, you still have choices, you still have power, you still have the ability to shape your own day, your own rhythm, your own way of living. And that's what breaking these hidden habits is all about. Not perfection, not pretending you're 30 again, but living in a way that reminds you, I'm still here, I'm still me. There's one more habit we need to talk about. It's perhaps the most silent of them all. The habit of emotional withdrawal. This one sneaks up slowly. It might begin with skipping a call because you're tired, or choosing not to share how you really feel because you don't want to bring anyone down. Maybe it looks like saying, "I'm fine," when you're not. Or avoiding conversations that feel too deep or too vulnerable. At first it feels like self-protection, like you're just keeping things simple. But over time, this distance becomes your new normal. And that emotional silence, it can feel safe, but it quietly steals your connection to life. When you stop expressing yourself, when you stop opening up, your relationships start to thin out. People don't know how to reach you. They assume you want to be left alone, and you might even start to believe it yourself. Maybe I've outgrown this friendship. Maybe I don't need to talk about things anymore. Maybe I'm better off just keeping to myself, but you're not. You need connection just as much now as you ever have, maybe even more. You need people who listen, people who understand, people who remind you that your feelings are still valid, that your life still matters, that your story still belongs in the conversation. There's nothing weak about saying, "I'm feeling lonely today," or "I wish we talked more," or even, "I'm not sure what I need, but I know I need something." That's not oversharing, that's being alive. I once sat with a man named Harold, 83 years old, sharp mind, dry humor. He told me, "After my wife passed, I got used to being quiet. It was easier than talking. But eventually, the silence started to feel like a wall I couldn't climb." He paused, looked at the cup in his hands and added, "It wasn't until my grandson asked me to tell him stories from my childhood that I realized I still had something to give, something to say," and he did. He had so much to say. Once he opened up, you could see the light come back to his eyes. Not because he fixed anything, but because he reconnected with someone who cared. That's the antidote to emotional withdrawal. Being heard. And being heard doesn't mean giving speeches. It means saying what's on your heart, even if it's messy, even if it's small, even if you've never said it out loud before. It's in those moments that you remember you're still part of something. When you keep your emotions inside, you start to feel like no one sees you. But when you speak, when you open up, you send a message to yourself and to the world. I still matter. And that message, that's where real independence lives. Not in pretending everything's fine, not in being completely self-sufficient, but in knowing who you are and expressing it with honesty. So maybe today's the day you call someone you've been thinking about. Maybe you share something that's been sitting in your chest for a while. Maybe you write a letter, even if you never send it. Maybe you just say one honest sentence at dinner. It doesn't have to be loud, it just has to be real. Because real connection gives you strength, it gives you purpose. It reminds you that you're not disappearing, you're still deeply needed. Now let's bring all of this together. You've started to see how simple daily choices, sitting too long, staying mentally idle, avoiding help, letting fear make decisions, and withdrawing emotionally, can quietly steal your independence. Not in one big moment, but in dozens of small ones. But you've also seen how small changes can bring that independence back. Standing up and moving your body even when it's hard. Engaging your mind with something new, even if it's unfamiliar. Speaking up about your needs, even if it feels uncomfortable. Making choices with courage, even if fear whispers in your ear. Opening your heart, even if it's been quiet for a while. These aren't grand gestures. They're daily acts of self-respect. Every time you choose movement over stillness, curiosity over passivity, clarity over silence, you're not just breaking a habit, you're rebuilding your life. You're telling yourself, "I'm not fading." You're showing others, "I'm still capable." You're proving to the world, "I still have a voice." And maybe most importantly, you're remembering something powerful. You have more control than you think, because independence isn't about being alone. It's about feeling anchored in yourself. It's about being in relationship with your own body, mind, and soul, and treating that relationship with care. So today, if you've been feeling like something is slipping, don't panic. Don't judge yourself. Just pause. Look at your day. Look at your habits. Look at what you're choosing out of routine that no longer serves you. And ask yourself, what's one thing I can do differently? Maybe you get up during every commercial break and stretch. Maybe you start journaling in the morning, even just a sentence. Maybe you schedule that doctor's appointment yourself instead of waiting. Maybe you take the longer route on your walk. Maybe you finally ask someone to come over just to talk. You don't need to change everything overnight, you just need to begin. And every time you do, you'll feel a shift, not just in your body, but in your spirit. That shift is called freedom. The kind that doesn't depend on age or circumstance, the kind that comes from living on your own terms. So if this message resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. Tell me what's one habit you're working on, one step you're taking to feel stronger, sharper, more yourself again. Your story matters, and someone else might need to hear it. And if you found value in this conversation, go ahead and like the video. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're building something here, a place where aging isn't about giving up, but about growing into something deeper. Thank you for being here, for choosing yourself, for choosing to live on purpose. Here's to strength, here's to clarity, here's to independence, one small powerful choice at a time, and most of all, here's to living your best life at any age.